It's like the beginning and the end when we realize that our words have power. And then our life becomes about really living a life that then we speak one word and the wind will halt.
Well, hey everyone. So, in a world that is often deafeningly loud with discord, finding a true signal, a frequency of truth, is not just an act of art, it's an act of spiritual warfare and biological necessity. So, we often think of singing as performance, but my guest today, Reya Manna, understands the voice as a mechanism of alchemy. She teaches that the human voice is the primary tool we have for waking down, the process of anchoring that high voltage of the divine into the dense realities of our physical bodies. Rhea is a rare bridge between two worlds. On one hand, she brings deep academic rigor, holding both a Master of Divinity and a Master of Social Work. She has studied multicultural philosophy, comparative religion, and psychology for over 20 years. But on the other hand, she is a mystic and a ceremonialist. From the indigenous elders of West Africa and North America to the silence of her own 30-year meditation practice, she has studied how sound can act as a hollow bone, a conduit that doesn't just describe reality, but actively reshapes it. She is the founder of the SongKeeper School and the author of The Awakening World. She is here to help us understand how to stop fighting the current of creation, how to win the battle before it even starts by sending a song ahead of the army, and how to tune the instrument of our lives to the frequency of grace. Rhea, welcome to Lightforged.
Oh my goodness, Justin, that was so beautiful. You brought tears to my eyes.
I'm very happy to have you here. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for that. You know, it's like in this process of the work that we do, sometimes we don't always see ourselves.
Mm,
And to have somebody give such a beautiful reflection, it's such a nice reminder. So thank you for that.
you're very welcome. Well, it's easy to do when you paint so well with your essence. So I'm very appreciative of that and very appreciative of you being here.
Thank you.
So yeah, so Ray, I mentioned in my intro how the world is often deafeningly loud. You know, we're often caught in discord. So I'd love to speak about the difference between being in the divine flow, being in that harmony versus being in that discordant state. So vibrationally, what does that fight sound or feel like in the body? Is discord simply a lack of listening, or is it an active counter frequency we generate?
Ah, what an amazing question, and what a potent question for this moment. Because I feel that we are all exhibiting aspects of the collective play. And so, right now, you know, our world, there's lots of dissonance, lots of discordance. And I would say, as you ask the question, what arises in me is this awareness that sometimes the discord is the very act of life inviting us to move, inviting us to deepen, inviting us to change. You know, we live in this kind of self help culture, which teaches us how to dissect ourselves to see what we did wrong to be a contributing factor to the things we don't like in our
Mm,
environment. And yet, sometimes life is giving us the squeeze so that we'll dig deeper,
mm,
so that we'll reach farther, that we'll look for something that we hadn't seen before. And, you know, I'm one of those people who in the Discord is often like, oh no, what did I do wrong? And let me get back to my practices and, you know, let me sing to the earth more. And maybe I'm not singing to the earth enough. But, you know, as we're in this moment, you know, not only this moment of conversation, but in this moment in time, I feel like we're in a discord that's inviting us to look somewhere we haven't yet looked.
mm. Yeah, and I would argue it's not often the Discord is inviting us to grow, but always the Discord is inviting us to grow. You know, it truly is always, even if it doesn't appear in that certain way, it's giving us that impetus or that catalyst for change, which is so necessary.
Yes.
Yeah. So if I do realize that I'm out of tune or in that discordant state, how do I mechanically recalibrate? Is it
Mm.
in silence? Is it a specific tone? So walk us through the physics of how we get back in sync.
Well, I think the first thing is noticing that there's something that seems off.
Mm.
And as there are a myriad of different individuals, there are a myriad of ways to come back into center. Um, I work with the earth and with the voice,
Mhm.
and the the land and nature is a natural harmonizer. It's a natural source of balance and informs our body of its own sense of balance. So, just being outside in nature, taking more time in the natural world as opposed to, inside these boxes or manufactured realities. Um, so spending time in nature and living inside of the inquiry. So the universe is this field of potentiality, this field of responsiveness that's always in presence with us, in dialogue with us.
Mm.
Most of us have not learned how to listen, how to communicate. So when we ask a question, the universe goes about to answer that question for us. And as I've been shown in this process, it's not so much about knowing the answer, but finding a question. So, being in nature and appealing to the universe, show me a solution. Show me what I need to know right now. Send me a sign. Send me a person. Send me an opportunity. Send me what I'm needing to reveal to me that depth of resonance that I'm craving right now.
Beautiful. And it's no accident that Yeshua gave in Matthew 7:7, no accidents with the numbers there, the famous ask and ye shall know, seek and ye shall find, knock and the door shall be opened. Because that's the moment, the act of us being in that humility, being in that openness to invite the divine in. But we have to give that over to her to come in. So that's beautifully said. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so once we are anchored, or no, excuse me. So you've said that the remedy isn't escaping to the heavens, which I really appreciate because there's a lot in the sort of spiritual communities about everything's about ascension and almost escapism. So I really appreciate your perspective around waking down. So anchoring that high voltage spirit into the body. So why is the meat suit necessary for this alchemy? What can we do in a physical body that we cannot do in a disembodied spirit?
Ah, uh, great question. As had been described or explained to me by a teacher of mine, he said that in the physical body, you have the capacity to shift vibrations, to change your state. When we're out of the body, we have the ability to stay in a state. And of course, the energy of the heavens is beautiful, and we often need to invoke that energy to remind us who we are. And human beings have the capacity to be this bridge between heaven and earth.
Mm.
In ancient times, in sacred sites, they would often depict the heavens upon the earth as a literal way of bringing heaven on earth in the form of the pyramids of Giza. There's three pyramids. They mirror Orion's belt. There are other pyramid systems around the planet that also mirror celestial patterns in the sky. In many temples, they would have a pool of water or a reflecting pool, and that would reflect the heavens down to the earth. The idea is that human beings can be a bridge. We can be like these acupuncture points when we're communing with, channeling these higher frequency energies, we can interject them into one another, into the planetary grid, into the earth, restoring the holiness and the sacredness of the life we live, of the ground we walk upon.
Mm. I love that. Yeah, I often love to draw upon the example of the tree being such a perfect example for us to embody because a tree not only grows its roots down deep, grounding into the physical earth, but it reaches its branches up high. Some practices will allude to only doing one or the other, but either way is there's an imbalance. We've got to be that perfect bridge between. So that's beautifully said. Thank you for that.
Yeah, and to one thing I'd love to add is the heart is the center. The
Mhm.
heart is the center of our chakras. We have 7 chakras, the heart being the center. In one of my meditations, I kind of saw everything flip, the above becoming the below becoming the above, and yet at the center remains our heart.
Mm.
And in some traditions, they speak of the cosmos tree, which has its roots in the heaven and its branches extended down to the earth.
Mm.
So, a guiding principle is our heart. It is that frequency of love that's said to be the source of all repair to a
Mm.
certain extent.
Yeah, the 0 point. Beautiful.
Mm.
So I love how you also mention in your prayer of becoming a hollow bone. So, in a world addicted to identity and building a platform, becoming hollow often feels dangerous to the ego. So, what is the terror of that emptiness, and why is it necessary to hold that frequency?
Mm. Gosh, these are such beautiful, these are poetic questions. I could just listen to them. Um, well, ultimately, we are source creation embodied. Once I was sitting in meditation and, communing with divine presence. And what occurred to me is that at one point, divine presence was, in its ineffable nature, the all that is, in such focused meditation on me
Mm.
that it materialized into my existence.
Mm.
And to realize that the all that is has in every case of our existence focused itself so intently to come into physical being. And yet we come into these environments, to these families, under the auspices of many influences, be they societal, religious, political, the influences of belief systems, which then shape our actions, shape our thoughts, shape the way we show up into the world. So the idea, it's a native teaching of becoming a hollow bone, or biblically it would be becoming this hollow reed. It's the idea that all those influences that we've accumulated, that's formulated who we think we are, for a moment, we are offering them up. For a moment, we are not identifying with them, and we are opening ourselves to be that original cause that brought us here to begin with. And we live in this house of illusion, I would say, in the physical material plane, and what we see is a bit distorted to the truth. And we think that we have to acquire, we have to amass and hold in order for us to have safety and security and for our needs to be met. And yet we live in a system of giving and flow. And when we give, we are given too. When we extend, when we open ourselves to being that hollow bone, to allow source creator to inspire our hearts, to move us, just like you were moved to do 12 holy nights, you were moved to have this conversation. When we open ourselves to this language of synchronicities, of the moment speaking through, then we can be vehicles and vessels for something greater to pour through. And Saint Teresa of Avila said, Christ has no hands in this world but yours, no body but yours. Yours are the eyes through which God sees compassion in the world. So, we're not looking for some source of divinity outside of ourselves. We have the opportunity to become it. And, for many of us at this time who feel a higher calling, who maybe identify as light workers or way showers, or feel just so attracted to the love of Christ, I think that a part and parcel of that, it's demonstrating to us that we came here at this time to lift each other up, to be part of the birthing of a new paradigm, not just to be at the effect of these influences, but to open ourselves so that the love of God can pour through. And what is better than that if we can uplift our neighbor in that way?
Right. So beautiful. And that's why surrender is such a potent process, because it is that release to let go of our clutch and our grip, holding on to whatever it is that we've think we've created or we think we've possessed, but to release that. And not that we have to lose everything, but just to trust that and be willing to lose whatever we need to, because the divine will move whatever needs to move and bring in whatever needs to bring in. And just having that trust, taking that leap of faith is so integral to that process. That's alchemy. So that's
Yes, and that's
beautiful.
the hero's journey as
Yes.
well in Joseph Campbell's
Yes.
schema. You know,
100%.
you have
The
this
one true
call to
story.
something greater. And when you say yes, you know, so begins the path. You know, very unexpected always.
Yep. Yep. And it's not a one and done. It's a continual process each and every day, each and every moment, each and every iteration. It's always going in this same Ouroboros cycle. And we're coming back to the beginning once again with new, fresh awareness. But there's always lessons to learn, and everything that we integrate is just a opportunity for us to be a higher expression of this creative being that we truly are. Just remembering that. So
Beautiful.
yeah. So once anchored, we have the tool, the voice, the word, logos, that speaks reality into existence. So most people use their voice transactionally. What shifts in the physiology or the heart when you move from talking to casting or blessing?
Such such a potent question yet again.
Mhm.
And I mean, there's when we add our intentionality, we add our consciousness,
Mhm.
which imbues any act with power. You know, through consciousness, we can imbue objects with power. We imbue words with power. And yet there's kind of more to the story of just deciding to cast spells. Um, it's said in Kabbalah that there originally we were all one being, Adam Kadmon. And then there was the fall of man. At the fall of man, it was as though we were a strand of pearls that broke, and each pearl was cast across the universe.
Mm.
So, what a lot of us feel called to do is be part of this movement to return us to unity, to restore us to unity. And a part of the fall of man is we had this direct connection with the divine, the above and the below. The bridge being the heart, being our integrity. We do what we say. We were operating not out of forethought or afterthought. It was just one and the same. The actions were simultaneously to the inspiration for those actions. So, as we live in this time, which can be called the after effect of the fall of man,
Mm.
we are using our words transactionally. We are also not in alignment most of the time with our thoughts, our feelings, our belief systems, our words, our actions. And so on the one hand, we are speaking reality or we're naming reality, but then we're defeating ourselves with having a thought that's to the opposite.
Mm.
So it's one thing to get intentional about casting spells with our words, to being very mindful, but there's also an aspect of our living
Mm.
which invites us into a greater sense of responsibility and integrity. You know, do we do what we say? You know, are we creating something with our words and then holding that same mental picture and that vision for ourselves? Are we supporting each other? Are we living in accordance with our value system? So life changes drastically when we recognize that we want to be part of this symphony of life, that we're choosing to use our words with consciousness. We're choosing to use our life with consciousness. And, you know, no man is an island. So it really takes community, it
Mm.
takes conscious relating, it takes us coming together in these spaces where we invite out of each other the sense of safety, the sense of deeper understanding, ways of relating that most people haven't experienced just coming out of their family system. So, you know, once we decide that that we even recognize that our words hold power, the power begins to grow. And also, Kabbalists say that the way to accumulate the greatest spiritual power is through helping others. So, we think about what are we living our life for? Is it to accumulate things for ourselves, or do we recognize these higher principles? We recognize the act of giving, the power of being of service, the power of love, the power of helping one another. Um, so it's like the beginning and the end when we realize that our words have power. And then our life becomes about really living a life that then we speak one word and the wind will halt.
Mm, amazing. Yeah, it's like starting that reflection process of being willing to look in the mirror, and then, as you mentioned so beautifully, to have that community, a loving community around us, to act as those loving mirrors to help us see these areas that we might not have been able to on our own. And instead of fighting against those things that might be uncomfortable to our ego in the moment, but to truly cherish this new reflection and this new way that I can see myself and see an angle that I might not have seen before. That's wonderfully said. And it reminded me of the parable that Jesus spoke about, ye shall know them by their fruits. And so we have to ask ourselves, like, what fruit am I producing? Are my thoughts and my actions, are they aligned with my words? Is everything in congruency, or is there some area of discord? Am I in harmony even with myself? Or is there something that's separate?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And just yesterday it was 111. And I was reading a post, and the question was, on this day, reflect, what is your North Star?
Mm,
And then if you continue going the way you're going, where are you going to end up?
mm,
So sometimes to take these moments and ask, am I on track with my soul? Is there something, this kind of brings us back to your first question, like, is there something inviting me to change, to grow, to have a course correction, to up level? So as we take these moments, then the mystery becomes revealed through our life experience,
mm,
which can frame our sense of purpose. We're not just here to like get a good job, make a lot of money, and retire and die. Like that's not the purpose. So, being inside of these inquiries help us to live the mysteries incarnate.
mm. I love that. So we've talked a little bit about it, but I'd like to take a deeper look at the alchemical process, transmuting that lead into gold. So how does the voice act as the perhaps philosopher's stone to physically dismantle grief or trauma, the lower form of lead, and turn it into light, turn it into gold? How does this mechanism actually work?
Beautiful. Well, everything is vibration. Every stone and tree and creature and experience of reality is contained in vibrational bandwidth. Memory is contained in vibrational bandwidth. There's actually a tone scale that looks at the vibration correlated with like 42 different areas of our life that can predict the thought patterns, the health conditions that come out of occupying that vibration. The good news about everything being vibrational is that we are vibrational and our voice is vibrational. So when we vibrate sound, it it resonates through our sinuses, which are literally our bones. It resonates our bones, and it has the capacity to alter our DNA.
Mm,
So when singing was the first form of sound healing. When we hum, when we tone, when we sing, we are literally shifting the vibration of our body down to the bones. And it's said that our bones, our teeth, and our nails are made of condensed sunlight. And in French, there's this word or this term, the harbol du garben. And that's the mystical sunlight fluid that lives within our bones, that mystics understood how to access the power of that for longevity, for health, for prosperity. Also in the yogic tradition, when we're chanting mantra, the seed language of Sanskrit in that instance, but there are many seed languages throughout the world, Hebrew being another one. Seed languages contain the vibrational reality of the thing. It's not like English, which is a sounded out word. Like if we're saying, a mantra for protection, we're literally putting protection into our energy field. We're naming protection into the space. And so I went down a little rabbit hole there. Um, so when we're working with the voice, we have that ability to transform our beingness. Now, also through the yogic system, we have 72,000 nadis, these energy points that are on the roof of the mouth and also are connected with the navel. So when we're chanting these Sanskrit mantras, we're stimulating these energy points in the body, which are sending signals through our body. Most problems of depression or disease are linked with some form of stagnation, some form of energy blockage in the body. So when we work with the voice, we can move the energy through the meridians of the body, through our energy field to help bring ourselves in resonance. Um, that healing balm that we're looking for is actually just a clear flow through of energy through the system. And we have been, had traumas in our lives, been socialized with different belief systems that interrupt the flow of our natural beingness. So when we work with sound practices in this way, it restores the body to that sense of flow through. And of course, it's done with intentionality. It's even more powerful when you do it with others, because then we're employing the laws of unified fields. It's kind of like where one or more are gathered in my name, I am there. Plus, every other person you add in amplifies the field exponentially.
Mm.
So, um, so the sound, it's spread. It's better to be shared in a sense.
Right. Yeah. Well said. And I would sort of love to explore that rabbit hole you started to go down just a little bit, just to get your curious take. So, do you find that Sanskrit to be the most vibrationally accurate form of language, or are there other languages that you have explored and seen in this way?
Hmm. So I think Sanskrit is the best at explaining the science. If you look at the Ayurvedic energy meridian systems or even Chinese medicine energy meridian systems, they are very well mapped and explained.
Mm.
In my experience, the best the best sound is that which is imbued with devotion.
Mm.
Sound is a carrier of intention. So this brings us back to imbuing everything with consciousness. So, I can sing to this tree over here. And it's not just about me singing to the tree, but I'm imbuing the intention of seeing this tree empowered, seeing it healthy, seeing it whole. But then if I can fall in love with the tree as an expression of divinity incarnate, and am so moved, to the point of tears or just feeling that devotion moving through me, then that's our connection with the divine flowing through our voice.
Mm.
So in my experience with sound, I use a lot of different sounds, from all over, different seed languages, English songs, native chants. And ultimately, our purpose is to build relationship with our devotional heart, to build relationship with the all that is, the magnificence that brought us into this life. And then we sing our love to that. It's like, I can look at you and see the beauty of God in you. And through really seeing the beauty of God in you, it brings out the beauty of God in you.
Mm.
And, people have kind of set up this dichotomy between God and the natural world. But, what better use of living than to look around the natural world and see God within it, to look around at our humanity and see God within it. It restores the truth of who we are into every moment.
Mm. I love that. Yeah, because on that topic, I've seen a lot of discussion or people getting into the ideas that English was created as this way to separate us from the divine or lead us into these discordant ways. But even in that, just as you said, we are the alchemists. So even if that was an intention at any point, it doesn't really matter because what we choose to imbue, what energy we put behind it, it will alchemize back to the truth of who we really are, which is beyond separation. You know, the separation is merely an experience.
Yes. And they can burn the books and destroy the wisdom, but it doesn't stop the wisdom from coming through. You know, in my meditations, well, years ago, I started sun gazing. I would wake up before the sun and just drink the sunlight through my body. And afterwards, I would send blessings to the earth. And after maybe 10 days of that, the earth started to speak back and showed me that all wisdom from all time is contained in the energetic field of the earth and in our energetic field. And it's available for us as we build this relationship and we start to open these communication channels. You know, when we look in the Bible, we see stories upon stories of prophets, of people who the angels spoke to, who God revealed himself, herself to. And this isn't something that stopped thousands of years ago. The idea is that we live inside of this living system where the direct revelation is always happening. And this doesn't negate any system or any teachings. It invites us into this divine alchemical being that we are. We are created in the image and likeness of God. We are divine incarnate. And we have the capacity to know God, to love God, to receive the presence of divinity in this lifetime. And maybe English was created to try to control, just like they say that the music scale that we use these days was designed to control. However, you can't stop the truth emanating through the surface. You can't stop the love that flows through our hearts. And it's the frequency of truth that comes without words, that comes without anybody's seal of approval, but it's that frequency is what we're going for. And so that's why for me music has been this glorious way to commune with that.
Yeah, it's a beautiful bridge. It's a beautiful bridge. And I, I do often like to say, because I'll say is the if we want to look at, you know, conspiracy theories or anything like that, the number one is all about disconnection. And we can get lost in the weeds about the mechanics of this disconnection and how it's employed and why it's attempted. But when we really bring it back to the simplicity of that, then any act of connection with myself, with another, with the divine, which are really all one and the same, there's no disconnection between those elements either. Then if I can any implementation of connection is the true revolution and it's the true way to come back to that. And I don't have to be fighting it against a narrative or trying to scream from the mountaintops or make anybody wake up and see. I just get to live and embody that. So that was so beautifully said. I really appreciate that.
Thank you for that. And this is a really important point because, I mean, my awakening process started in 2011. And at that time, I was getting so many messages and had so many awarenesses. And one was I saw this awakening process that was about to happen on the planet. And I saw people waking up to the injustices.
Mm.
And, you know, when you wake up to the injustices, you're like, oh my God, like that was bad and that was bad and that was bad. And then you just want like retribution or retaliation in some way. But then as you continue the awakening process, you start to realize that, well, I was all of that. Whatever had been done to me, I have done. And if anything, let me just open my heart,
Mm.
pour out compassion, and have love and forgiveness. And, you know, it's a big part of the whatever psyop of today, where it's all these places where we go down rabbit holes of disconnection and we want to find out who to blame and who is wrong. And that's taking our power as creative beings and just regurgitating a narrative. And that's, you know, we're in this game of self-mastery. And so if we look at it that way, it's not about anything that's happening around us, but the capacity or the ability that it's calling forth from us.
Right.
And part of that is understanding how to use our power as creator to actually create,
Right.
to not replicate, to not enhance somebody else's message, but to become that hollow bone. And to become a hollow bone takes discernment, because most of us, we think we're a hollow bone, but we didn't realize how much our ego got into it. Um, so this is why it's also important for us to work on ourselves and gain self-awareness, have the reflection of trusted friends and others in the position where they can give us good insight.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, that piece of understanding where to put your power,
Mm.
not, well, into the fight or into the creation.
Right. Yeah, it's finding that balance between the actions necessary to, if it's within my sphere of influence, to stop harm from being caused. So not to excuse behavior, not to allow things to continue if I have the ability to stop it, but also approaching that with compassion, knowing that that is no one else but me. I have no one else to blame. There is no other. So it moves that the sense of needing to have revenge or retribution. It softens that edge of it, and so it just becomes an immediate stopper of the harm without the perpetual punishment, punitive actions that seem to follow later. So it's a tricky balance at times. Um, yeah, I'd love you to speak on that.
Um, well, recently I've been reading this book by Carolyn Miss,
Mm.
and it's called Invisible Acts of Power. And she shared this story, which is why I started reading the book. Are you familiar with Carolyn Miss?
No, I'm not.
She was a medical intuitive, and she wrote books like Sacred Contracts and Archetypes and um, ways to help us kind of understand and navigate the human psyche. And she also is a theologian and studied mystics and different religious traditions. And she had this idea that she would invite her audience to send letters explaining instances when they either have been guided to help someone or someone had been guided to help them, like in these deep moments of inspiration. There's no other reason why you would do something like this.
Mm.
She thought she would get a few hundred letters, and she got 1,200 letters in 7 days. And she said that it changed her life. And in this book, she shares some of the letters, and she looks at it in terms of ways that that we're able and being called to help one another. She looks at it in terms of the chakra system.
Mm.
First chakra, the root, being our sense of belonging, our safety, security, material needs. The second being our creativity. The third being our personal power. The fourth being love and compassion. The fifth being um, the power of our self-expression,
Right. True.
our intuition. The sixth, seventh is our connection with source,
Mm.
and how we can help others through these different on these different levels. Sometimes we think that, real change is affected by helping someone who's impoverished or who's hungry or who needs a home. And absolutely, we can help people on that level. But there's also a level of prayer. There's a level of upliftment. There's a level of inspiration. And so when we pass by a circumstance that speaks to us in some way, we're not always being called to be the one to physically make a change, but maybe it's just something that we're called to pray about. Or there's somebody that then we speak to about it later, and in an inspiring or uplifting way, we can shed a new perspective or a new light. So in this book, it speaks to seeing the world through that lens, that we are here to be these vessels of divinity to uplift one another. And that many people, our life is designed to have some place in it, this boulder that cannot be removed. We have this moment in time or several where we're like, what the heck happened? Why did that happen? I wish that never happened. And, some people fall into regret throughout their whole lives as a result.
Mm.
But the teaching in this book and so many different religious and theological texts is the rock is there on purpose. It is the exact thing that your soul needed to develop a certain capacity, a certain soul lesson. And again, coming back to, we're not here just to make a lot of money and die. We are the incarnation of the mystery.
Mm.
The mystery being these moments of choice between being of service or falling back into selfish needs, a choice of following our inspiration or just doing things the way everybody else did them. So when we can begin to see that these obstacles are there for our souls, for our soul's higher purpose, and a lesson that we cultivate in this life, a lesson our soul cultivates, is a lesson that we take with us beyond this life. So this also can frame some of the suffering and the challenge that many people go through, that it's for a reason, and to dig a little deeper and to see the world through the lens of that we are here to be of service to one another, to uplift one another. That can be the thing to help us understand why we ourselves have had challenge.
Right. Beautifully said. And it draws upon the simple yet sometimes challenging nature of the divine, of love, of even goodness, that it's beyond definition, it's beyond structure, it's beyond end all be all. It has to look like this every single way because it is truly moving through us in through our unique individual lens, through our unique personality, whatever our divine mission has brought us into. And so we all know what love is. We all know what goodness is. But as soon as I try and define what it looks like for me or how it has to show up in all of these different scenarios, then I'm missing the point of, as you say, be the hollow bone, to allow to be that receiver so I can allow that influence of what I know to be within from my own unique perspective, how it's supposed to flow through me in the best way possible. So on that, I would be curious if you could, because you spoke on the difficulties of being that hollow bone and avoiding the patterns of that might block off that ability to receive. So how could somebody be a hollow bone and know that they're receiving that divine influence versus receiving the egoic repetitions of somebody else's energy, the stories that somebody else has created or narratives that have been put out there? How can we really, because there's one thing to be open, but how do I know I'm being open to divine influence versus just the noise of everything around me?
That's a great question. Um, and, it goes back to discernment. And we develop discernment through the act of living.
Mm.
We understand, when something feels right, when it was right, when maybe we could have had a little bit of a shift in the way we showed up. Um, and when we are acting um, for the highest good of all is a great little tagline. May this be for the highest good of all. And also, when we're really clear of being positive and uplifting. So I have a song actually called Hollow Bone. And first is this invocation, make me a hollow bone, sing through me. And after actually several layers of invocation, then finally it's all is well. And the all that is remembers. So we're just naming into the field, we're enhancing the truth that already is there. It's like if I were to, or say someone came with a health condition, it's not, you would pray health over them, wholeness over them. It's seeing someone in the perfection of their original stainless purity, seeing life in its circumstance, in its original stainless purity.
Mm.
Then you're not doing anything. And you can also kind of put the caveat, I go in the name of the Most High. And just being aware of, am I trying to do something for some reason? Or is this something that there's a higher purpose? Like, what comes to me, I have also a music program for children called Sing the World Awake. And I sing with kids, songs that are just these positive affirmations, and we do yoga mudras, and we talk about feelings. And um, sometimes I wonder, like, is this a good idea? Is this a positive thing to contribute? Am I doing it out of my ego? Whatever. And what comes to me over the 12 years that I've been doing it, what comes to me again and again and again is no, it's good. This is good. So some of the things that we do, it will be life that shows us that it's the right thing.
Mm.
There's some like default things, like you can always pray health and wholeness over someone or over our world. You can always say, okay, I go in the name of the Most High. This is for the highest good of all. Make me a hollow bone, speak through me, sing through me, um, whatever is needed, act through me so that I can be a vessel of divine grace or peace. However it comes out, we can say it in the morning, we can say it before we start an event or an activity, and then it can get more nuanced, which is you're inspired then to have a certain project. And as you continue moving forward with the project, then of course you find moments of questioning and wondering if you're doing the right thing. And then life will show you again and again and again. And part of the path is often we fall on our knees and we say, what am I doing here? What's the point? Am I on the right path? And I feel like it's important to have those moments of such surrender and humility, because that also opens us to be the hollow bone,
Mm.
where we can just receive a message without pushing our agenda on it so fiercely.
Mm. I love that. And I love how you touched on the key being humility. That's really the tool that we use to recalibrate when we need to. So you're following that chain of divine influence as long as you can. But as soon as you start to feel, maybe there's a bit of discord, maybe there's something where I can shift, then that's the call for humility to get down on your knees or whatever that action is, to invite, to open up again and say, do I need to get centered again? Am I drifting off of this solid foundation built on rock onto some sand? And if we're open to that, then it becomes a very easy process where it doesn't have to be a fight, or it doesn't have to be where our ego reviles at this death of sorts, because we're just inviting that in.
Yes, yes. And and it's a process, right?
Mhm.
And it also invites us into our connection and communion with our inner authority.
Mm.
And, our world has been built over thousands of years on external sources of authority. We see it in government, we see it in church, we see it in family systems. You will do what I tell you to
Mm.
do. And we're in the process of the dismantling of that. But in order for external authority to truly fall away, we have to find that inner authority
Mm.
and to know what it feels like. And part of the work I do with the SongKeeper School, which is the music program that I have for adults, is teaching the path of the mysteries through song, and also giving the experience through singing what this field of responsiveness truly feels like. So we begin to understand the difference between when I'm speaking out of my mind, when I'm speaking out of my ego, when I am in this field of transmission that is coming through me.
Mm.
And then beginning learning that discernment. And it takes practice of going there again and again and again, where we recognize, okay, we can now stay fully inside of that channel of divine transmission, where I'm speaking not out of my ego, but I'm tuning in to these channels of wisdom that exist everywhere. And then once I've experienced that channel of wisdom, I can get inside of it and just pull forth from it. I can speak out of it, have the divine speak through me. So it's a process of attunement,
Mm.
equilibration, and I love working with the voice in this process, because also that's how you learn to sing. You learn by attunement, you learn by equilibration. They say that the easiest thing for a human voice to equilibrate to is another human voice.
Mm.
Easier than playing something on the piano and trying to match that pitch. You can match another human voice. You can match the vibration, you match the resonance, you match the enunciation. And just like with children, how they learn with mirror neurons and they imitate, it's like that with singing, with sound, and also with this space of transmission.
Mm, beautiful. Yeah, so I want to go back to a topic that I touched on in the intro about you referencing how the king often sends the choir ahead of the army in this process. So, for the Lightforge community listening, how do we apply this strategy today? How do we use sound to rearrange the battlefield of a business launch or a conflict before we ever take physical action?
Mm. Thank you. Powerful question. Um, and it's this recognition that everything in our physical material world comes from a more rarefied cause.
Mm.
So the unseen world births the material world, the seen world. And so to go ahead of any physical action, when we go through in vibrational resonance, when we go forward with vibrational resonance, we can set the stage, we can create the energetic blueprint that we're holding before we even take action. And so this speaks to the power of group prayer, the power of unified fields, the power of manifestation exercises, the power of offerings. Native cultures understood that before they took anything from the land or from life, that they needed to create, they needed to make offerings. And I'd heard a story once about, I think it was the Aztec, and they understood the technology to make complicated weapons. But when they looked at the cost of offerings in order to combine the different metals and to make it right in the spirit world before they brought it into the physical world, it wasn't worth it. So they didn't bring forward the weapons into the material plane. So, a way that we can do that now is whenever there's a project, get together with another person. I mean, you can even do it on your own, and you hold the frequency of that. You can, I mean, there's a mudra, a yoga mudra that I love to use, and you rub your hands together because all the energy meridians are contained in the hands, and we have an energy center in our palms. So rub the hands together, stimulate that energy center and those meridians, and hold our hands about a foot open in front of our heart center. See that area filled with light, and speak blessings in that space. The project is successful, all is well, I have all the assistance I need. You can sing, and it really doesn't matter even what you sing. The idea is that while you're sharing vibration, you are using that intentional power of your consciousness to infuse into that space a vision. And the vision may change and unfold, but you see it filled with light. You see that vision. And when you do it alone, you might need to do it day after day after day. For me, whenever I'm doing a launch, I'll do it for months before the launch, but it's even more successful and impactful when you can get a group of people together and all do it. And in these times, we don't know what's going to happen, even in the next hour. It feels like there's always something unexpected coming up. And part of the reason why I've been inspired to start the projects I have is because I had this vision once of seeing people gathered singing and dancing in the streets. And I was shown that when people hold that high frequency of vibration, of sound in a unified field together, that negativity can't stand.
Mm.
And the idea is that we are becoming this army of singers. We are here to sing the world awake and create these unified fields of sound and song and prayer that shifts the collective consciousness.
Awesome. Great answer. And for anyone listening, if you want to have more validation around this mudra of rubbing your hands together and holding them apart, just pulse your hands together. And when you do it with enough intensity and intention, you can feel this ball of energy that you've formed, and that's the magic that you're bringing in to be able to channel and move that towards whatever whatever space of intention you're bringing it towards. But that's a tangible, physical feeling that you can actually feel from doing that to give more of a validation to the mind if one needs proof of these kind of things. So I just wanted to add that. Um, and yeah, so you talked a little bit about your school and speaking of gathering the choir and training the army of singers. So you are actively teaching people how to become these technicians of sound. For those who feel called to master this tool, where are you leading people next? Please tell us about the Song School and your upcoming event and anything else that you'd like to share.
Thank you for that. Um, a new session of the SongKeeper School begins at the end of the month, and we go through the path of the mysteries and understanding how to attune, to align, how to deeply listen, and how to commune and build relationship with the unseen world, how to sing to the water, how to sing to the sun, how to be inside of this field of transmission to align and attune with the truth of who you are. So we're all here for self-expression. And self-expression for me is with a capital S. It's our divine expression pouring through us. So our voice is a metaphor for that self-expression. And we're also in this year of 2026. And I have an event coming up on Saturday, which is a free event, and it's called 2026 Unlock Your Divine Purpose. And I'll dissect a little bit the numerology of the year, some of the native prophecies of the year, and it's on kind of just right before the new moon in January, and for the new moon in February we have an eclipse, and the astrology is very powerful for this time, for the January like 20th to 25th kind of time frame and February 20th. The native prophecies are saying that this is the year of the closing of the door, the closing of the door of the old system, and to further then open this new way. I mean, for anybody who has been kind of paying attention to like spiritual climate, energetic climate, it's said that 2012 was the end of the Mayan calendar, the end of this 26,000-year cycle, and the beginning of a new one. And so many traditions, Vedic astrology in India. I mean, you can even suggest some biblical prophecy, as well as many native traditions from around the world say that we're entering a time of unconditional love, of peace, of harmony on the earth, and that one system is closing. There's a door closing on the old way of being, which is very separatist, very divisive, and we're opening into this time of peace and harmony and unity consciousness. Some say that we're entering the age of Aquarius, or we're here in the age of Aquarius. Aquarius is the water bearer, and the water is we're 70% water. Our earth is 70% water. Dr. Masaru Emoto does work with messages in water and helping us to understand the impact of our conscious words and intentions upon water itself. Water is both a drop and it's the ocean. We're entering this time where we really have the capacity to learn how to be both our individual selves and to be part of the collective, how to shine the light of our own divine purpose plugged into the tapestry, the symphony of divinity. And for many of us, we may feel that we suffer at times from disconnection, from lack of purpose, from lack of community, that we want more tribe, that we want to be part of something greater. And I think that is inspired out of these times that we're in, where the age of the lone wolf is coming to a close. And we're going to find out more and more how to really be that beautiful, bright conduit of grace that we individually came here to be in the context of a whole, and feel ourselves celebrated by the success of our neighbor, our community and tribe, as well as feeling our community and tribe celebrated by our own success. So parameters for success, I think, will change. So we'll be speaking to that on Saturday, 2026, Unlock Your Divine Purpose. And then the SongKeeper School starts the following week. And that is a deep dive. We go from January to June, and we learn breathwork practices to clear our energy field, principles to align and build that relationship with our Mother Earth so that we're receiving messages all the time, to really hone that inner sense of authority, because that is the way shower that's going to lead us into whatever this next iteration of our world is.
Mm. Thank you for that. And it came to me like how perfect is Aquarius being an air sign, but a water bearer to represent the singing and spoken word and the way that the breath really breathes life into us as water-based beings. So how beautiful and perfect. So thank you for that. And I'll definitely link all of that information in the description so you can find where to go to the event. And I will certainly be there, and then the song school information as well. So thank you for that, Rhea. Um, yeah, so I'd love to, before we close out today, I'd love to maybe invite, um, I'd love to invite you to close us with a song if you'd be so willing. But before we do that, I'm also curious, do you have, so for someone who's feeling a bit discordant or feeling like they're out of sorts, do you have just a quick, maybe 1, 2, 3 minute exercise or practice to kind of help snap back into that harmony, something that some tangible action that we can leave the audience on something to do? Yeah, just curious if you have something that comes to mind.
Um, yeah, just a little breath work. And you can do it at any time of day, but the idea is that you connect with the light of the sun. If it's the light of the sun overhead, or it could be the light of the rising sun, the idea is you inhale the light of the sun down through your crown, down into your heart, and then you exhale down into the heart of the earth. And then you inhale from the heart of the earth up through your feet, up through your root, into your heart. And then you exhale up through your crown, up to the sun. And you do that a few times to move the energy through. Most of the time when we're feeling discordant, it's because there's a stagnation somewhere. I often find that the stagnation comes a lot of times these days from not feeling understood.
Mm.
We feel so isolated, and that can just cause triggers to spiral. So sometimes just being able to articulate what it is that we're feeling with somebody who sees us and holds that space of divine presence for us, then that can be just the thing to trigger our own divine intelligence. Because if we're not feeling good, it's because we've lost access to that inner sense of authority. And, it could be a breath work. It could be just the act of humming. These are things that shift our energy state, shaking the hands, or just being in presence with someone and being understood, being witnessed through that divine gaze, that they are seeing the light in you, and having someone look at you and see that divine light instantly puts us back in connection with that inner sense of authority, puts us back in that creates an opening for our divine intelligence to speak through. And if you want somebody to do that for you, I'm sure you know people, Justin and I can do that for you, but also do that for someone else in a moment where you feel that you have it in you to see the good in someone. Do that for others. That opens up the funnel for others to do that for you. Whatever we're needing from the world, from someone else, if we're needing transportation, give someone a ride. If we're needing food, feed someone. If we are afraid of a certain outcome in our lives, see if we can somehow do something for someone. And along those lines, the myth of this world is that we're in this field of illusions, and we think that things appear the opposite of what they really are. So if you want to come back into resonance, if you even have a moment where you can struggle to look for the beauty in your neighbor, look for the beauty in them, and just trust that at that moment that you're going to need it, someone will do that for you.
I love that. That's perfect. Thank you for that. Yeah, so I'd love if we could close today's show with you playing a song. And I'd love it if um yeah, we could just end with just that if that's okay with you. Um but before then I just want to give such gratitude for you coming on to the show today and really spending your time pouring your love and compassion that's so clear and obvious through your work and the ways that you speak about things. It has such a level of care that is so obvious. So I just want to thank you so much for your time and attention today. It's been such a beautiful conversation. I really love this, and I hope we can continue our connection here. So I really appreciate that, and you're welcome back anytime.
Thank you. It was a pleasure and an honor. And thank you for the thoughtfulness that you wrote my bio and created all those questions.
Of course.
Yeah, you hold beautiful space.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So I'll get my instrument. And this is just a little song that you can sing along that invites us into opening. And when I ask people to sing it, I usually say to either sing it to your little child, your inner child, or to imagine that Mother, Father of the universe is singing this to you. Can you hear okay? Sometimes storms come and we are asked to weather them. I've always been holding you. Open your heart to me. Who are we now? Can we allow more to unite than to divide? And soon